This is part 1 of the homework video guide for combining exponent laws. And for question 1a, I need to simplify the following. So simplify often means find the right answer. As you can see, I have numbers and variables here. So the general rule is you want to multiply numbers with numbers. So 3 times 3 is 9. And the other rule is you want to multiply variables with variables, right? So if the bases are the same, all you have to do is add the powers here. So the variable is a, and we're just adding 3 plus 4. Okay, so the final answer is 9a to the power of 7. Okay, so that's it for question number 1a. Let's move on to 1d now. All right, so the numbers are now -2 and 12. So those are my coefficients. So multiply the numbers with the numbers. So -2 times 12 is -24. And then we want to multiply the variables with the variables, right? So when we're multiplying variables and the bases are the same, we just add the powers, right? So we're adding 4 plus 9. All right, so final answer here is -24 x to the power of 13. Okay, so that's it for question number 1D. Let's move on here. Letter E now. Okay, the coefficient here is -1/2, and I have a -14. So the rule is we multiply numbers with numbers. So since I have two negatives, the final answer should be a positive. So 14 divided by 2 is going to be 7, right? So that's going to be 7. And then we multiply the variables with the variables. So the variable is E, and since the bases are the same, we just add the powers. And so my final answer is going to be 7e to the power of 15. Okay, let's move on. Okay, this is a good one here because our coefficients are now, they are decimals here. So we want to multiply numbers with numbers. So 0.4 times 0.5 is actually just 0.2. If you didn't know why it's 0.2, you can take 0.4 and you can convert that into a fraction. And 0.5, that's 50%, which is 5 out of 10. So essentially, you're just multiplying 4 out of 10 and 5 out of 10. So let me just do this very quickly here. So 4 out of 10 times 5 out of 10. And 4 times 5 is going to be 20. And 10 times 10 is going to be 100. So 20 out of 100 is 20%, which is 0.2. So that's how you get the 0.2 if you weren't sure how to multiply the decimals there. Okay, and then our variables are c cubed and c. So if I multiply the variables with variables, we just add the power. So this is c to the power of 3 plus 1. Final answer here is 0.2 c to the power of 4. Okay, let's keep on moving along here. All right, so for question number 2, we are still simplifying, but now we're dividing here. So once again, we just combine the operations with numbers and numbers. So 21 divided by 7, that's going to be 3. So divide the numbers with the numbers, and then we divide the variables with the variables. And when we're dividing, and if the base is the same, you subtract the powers, right? You subtract the powers. So this will be 3d to the power of 4. Okay, so that's the answer for question 2c. Let's keep on moving along. Okay, and now we want to 2d now. So the numbers or the coefficients are -80 and 8. So -80 divided by 8 is going to be -10. And then we have our variables. So when we're dividing, if the bases are the same, we just subtract the powers there. And the final answer will be -10d to the power of 72. And after a while, you should be able to do these questions a little bit faster because if I'm dividing numbers and numbers, 12 divided by 12 is just 1. And then this one right here, we just subtract the powers. 6 minus 5 is going to be 1, right? So final answer is going to be f to the power of 1, and f to the power of 1 is just f. Okay, so that's it for question 2f. All right, let's move on to question number 3. So write in simplest form here. So just a few more combination questions here, but the rules are generally the same, right? You multiply the numbers with the numbers and the variables with the variables. So 3 times 5 is going to be 15. Okay, after that, you multiply the a variables together here. Okay, so a squared times a to the power 4 is going to be a to the power of 6, right? So 2 plus 4 is 6. And then I have b cubed and b to the 8. So if I multiply those variables together, we just add the powers. So 3 plus 8 is going to be 11. So final answer is 15a6, b11. Okay, let's continue here. I noticed that I have x to the 9 and x to the 2. So we're just adding those two powers there, right? So 9 plus 2 is going to be 11. and then we have y to the 0 and y to the 4, and we just simply add the powers as well. So 0 plus 4 is going to be 4. So final answer there is x11, y to the 4. Okay, so another combination question here. Question number, this is a 3C, I guess. So 6 divided by 2, so divide the numbers with the numbers. So 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3. Okay, and then I have x to the 4 and x cubed. So that's going to be, we're just subtracting the powers, right? So 4 minus 3 is going to be 1, so x to the power 1. And then I have y to the 7 and y squared, right? So 7 minus 2 is going to be 5. So it's going to be y to the power of 5. Okay, so if I had to write this out carefully, this would be 3x y to the power of 5. There's my final answer there. Okay, let's move on to 3D now. Now, over here, on the denominator there's an invisible 1 there. So if you think about this, 5 divided by 1, so divide the numbers with the numbers. 5 divided by 1 is going to be 5. And I have x to the 4 and x cubed. So 4 minus 3 is going to be 1, so x to the power 1. And then I have y to the 7 and y to the 2, so 7 minus 2 is going to be 5. Okay, so final answer here is 5x y to the 5. Okay, so very similar to the previous question as well. Okay, let's go over some questions where the denominator is bigger than the numerator this time in terms of the coefficients. So 4 divided by 12. If you think about 4 divided by 12, that's the same as 1/3, right? So I can write this as 1/3. And then we have f12 and f4. So 12 minus 4 is going to be f to the 8, right? 12 minus 4 is going to be 8. And then I have d3 and d, so there's an invisible 1 here, so 3 minus 1 is going to be 2, so d squared. Okay, so you can write your answer like that. Another way you can write your answer is f8 d squared all over 3. So these are equivalent answers right there. So there's a few ways where you can deal with that coefficient of 1/3. You can have 1/3 in the front, or you can have a 3 on the denominator. Okay, so we want question number 3F here. So let's look at the numbers here. The numbers are 7 and -2. So if I multiply 7 and -2, that gives me -14. Okay, now b4, b, and b squared. So we're just adding the numbers, right? So 4 plus 1 is 5. And then 5 plus 2 is going to be 7. So that's going to be b to the power of 7. All right, and then we have our c's, right? So c squared, and c to the 6. So we're just adding 6 plus 2 plus the 1. There's a visible 1 there. So that's going to be c to the power of 8, 9, I believe, right? So c to the power 9. Okay, so once again, if you're multiplying with variables and the bases are the same, you just add the powers. Okay, let's go on to question number 4 here. So 4a, so a few more simplifying questions here. So I have 10 over 15. So 10 divided by 15, if you want to simplify that on the side here, divide both top and bottom by 5. If I do that, I get 2/3. All right, so 2/3 is my coefficient. Okay, and then same idea, right? E to the 8 and e to the 4. 8 minus 4 is 4, so e to the power 4. And then I have f to the power of 8 and f to the power of 2. So 8 minus 2 is going to be 6. So f to the power is 6 there. Okay, so at this stage, you should be able to do the some of the calculations in your head a little bit quicker now. So I have a -2 for question 4c here. There's an invisible 1 there and a -3. So if you think about this, a -2 times -3, that's going to be positive 6. I have an x there, an x squared, and a single x. So there's an invisible 1 here and a 1 there. So 1 plus 2 plus 1 is going to be x to the power of 4. And then there's a y cubed, and a y. And these all have an invisible 1. So 1 plus 3 plus 1 is going to be 5. So y to the power of 5. Okay, so that's it for 4c. Okay, this next question here is, I like this one because there's a divide symbol there. So if we write this out carefully, this would be -10 t to the 8 y to the 6 all divided by -2 t to the 7 y cubed. So sometimes you got to rewrite some of these questions here. So -10 divided by -2, and then you just go ahead and solve these questions like we've been doing in the previous problem. So -10 divided by -2 is going to be 5. So this is question 4e. All right, and then we do t to the 8 and t to the 7. So 8 minus 7 is going to be 1, so t to the 1. And then we also have a power of 6 and a power of 3, right? So 6 minus 3 is going to be 3. All right, so you can rewrite this as 5ty cubed. Okay, good. All right, let's go on to the next question here. Let's kind of rewrite this so that we can visually see the operations a bit easier here. So there's a division sign, so we're dividing this by negative 16 x z to the 6. Okay, so our coefficients are 4 and negative 16. So if I compute 4 and negative 16 over here on the side, if I reduce the fraction there, I get negative 1 over 4. So divide top and bottom by 4 there, right? So my leading coefficient is going to be negative 1 over 4. Okay, and then x to the 5 and a single x there, right? There's an invisible 1 here, right? So that's going to be x to the power of 4, right? 5 minus 1 is 4. And then I have x to the 7 and z to the 7 and z to the 6. So 7 minus 6 will be 1, right? So there you go. There's your final answer there. If you want to rewrite this carefully, it would be negative 1 over 4, x to the 4, z. Okay, so that's it for question number 4. Okay, let's go on to question number 5 here, write in simplest form here. Okay, so these questions, there's a few ways you can approach these kind of questions. I kind of like to go backwards by looking at the power there. So if I go backwards here, 4 times 3 is going to be 12, so that's going to be b to the 12. And that one's done. And then you'll notice that I have this negative a squared, right? So what that really means is I have this negative a squared, and that's being raised to the power of 4. Now, to kind of finish this question off, sometimes this is a little bit tricky because I do find that this calculation right here is sometimes a bit tricky because of that negative sign inside the brackets. Whenever you have a negative sign inside the brackets and it's being raised to an outside power, sometimes you might want to just think about this by expanding this by using repeated multiplication. And then once you've done enough of these, you can probably jump to the final answer a little bit quicker. But sometimes I like to write the repeated multiplication so I can think about this. So notice that there are an even number of negative signs, right? There's 4 negative signs. So what that really means is the final answer will be positive. And then you have a squared times a squared times a squared times a squared, which is a to the power of 4. And then the b12 remains. So there's your final answer right there. I have a lot of students that just multiply the 4 and the 2, and then sometimes they think the answer is negative a to the power of 8. This is incorrect. You have to correctly deal with this negative sign right there. So one way to deal with that negative sign is to write it out as a repeated multiplication, and then you can clearly see that the final answer should be positive. So I think that's one of the main challenges with the questions in part 5 here. So let's take a look at 5b. So you notice that I've asked students to kind of do most of these questions here. So I like to work from the outside power inwards. So if I multiply this power with that power, I get b to the power of 15. Okay, and then I have this negative a squared. So just like the previous question, I have this negative a squared, and that's being raised to the power of 5. Okay. Once again, if I look at this 5 here, and if I use repeated multiplication here, the brackets is being expanded 5 times. And then I have the b to the power of 15 over there. And hopefully you can see that now we have a odd number of negative signs. An odd number. So we have an odd number of negative signs because there's 5 negative signs. So the final answer will be negative. And then we multiply a squared with a squared with a squared with a squared with a squared. So that's going to be a to the power of 10, right? And then I have the b to the 15 that's tagging along. So you want to be very careful with 5a and 5b. You want to make sure you understand the concepts there when you have a negative sign, when you have this negative sign inside the brackets. You got to be very careful depending on what that outside power is. Okay, let's move on to letter C now, 5c. This one's a little bit easier because you just go from the outside in. So 4 times 3 is 12. And then 3 times 3 is 9, so a to the 9. And that's about all you can do for that particular question. You're done. For letter D, there's a few ways you can do letter D here, but let's just go ahead and tack the numerator first. Since we're multiplying, the bases are the same, we just add the powers. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And then on the bottom we do the same. There's an invisible 1 there. So the bases are the same, we just add the power. So 4 plus 1 is 5. And now this is a combo question because now we're dividing. And if we're dividing now, we subtract the power. So 7 minus 5 is going to be 2. All right, so see the power 2 there. Okay, let's see if we can do a few more questions here. Let's finish off question number 6 here, and then that'll be it for part 1. So I like these questions when we have this outside power there. So if we go backwards here, that's going to be b to the power of 8. 4 times 2 is 8. And then this 4 distributes onto this a. That'll be a to the power of 4. And then finally, I had this 3, right? The 3 and the 4. So really, we have a bracket 3 to the power of 4. Okay, so now you have to think about what is 3 to the power of 4, right? So a common mistake is students will say 3 times 4, but it's really 3 to the power of 4, and 3 to the power of 4 is going to be 81, and then we just tag along the variables. Okay, let's do another one here. Let's go backwards again. 4 times 2 is 8, so c to the power of 8. And then going backwards again, that's a to the power of 20. And then I have this negative 4, so I'm going to put that negative 4 in a bracket, and that's being raised to the power of 4. Okay, so once again, now you're going to think about this. What's negative 4 to the power of 4? So that's the same thing as negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4, which will be positive 256, and then the variables just tag along, like that. Okay, let's move on to letter C now. Okay, so we have a few more good combo questions. So we have to kind of deal with this bracket first. Okay, let's go ahead and go backwards here. This is n to the power of 20. And this is m to the power of 15. And then I have this negative 2 here. So the negative 2 is being raised to the power of 5. Okay, and then on the side here, we still have m squared, m cubed. Okay. All right, let's think about what is negative 2 to the power of 5. So this is a calculation that you need to do mentally here. So that's the same thing as negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So that's going to be negative 32. And then we have m to the power of 15, n to the power of 20, and then we're going to multiply that by m to the power of 2 and n to the power of 3. Okay, so we're almost done here. We just now multiply the variables here, the common variables. So m to the power 15 times m to the power 2. So we've done enough of these where we know that's going to be m to the power of 17, n to the power of 20, and n to the power of 3. So that is Michael Jordan's number, which is 23. And then we have this negative 32, the coefficient, which just tags along there. Okay, so there's your final answer there. So that's a very good question there. All right, moving on to 6D here. So I noticed that there's a 3 here, and we can go backwards again. So that's going to be y to the power of 9, and 3 times 2 is 6, so x to the power of 6. And then we have this negative 4 out here to the power of 3. And then we also have this bracket 8x y to the 8. Okay. All right, so now we got to think about what is negative 4 to the power of 3. So that's the same thing as, oh boy, so that's going to be 4 times 4, which is 16, and 16 times, is it 4 again? It's 4 times 4 times 4, so, right, so negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4, that's going to be negative 64, I believe. So I have to think about that one for a bit. Then I have x to the 6 and y to the 9, and then I multiply that with 8x y to the 8. Okay. All right, now I have my coefficients here, negative 64 and 8, right? So we need to multiply our numbers with our numbers. So 64 times 8, you might have to do that in your head or on the side there, but it's going to be negative 512. And then we have x to the 6 and x, so 6 plus 1 is 7, so x to the 7. Y to the 9 and y to the 8 is going to be y to the 17. Okay, so that's it for question 6D there. That was a bit of a lengthy one, but that's definitely a good one there. And the last question for this homework video, guys, is going to be question 6E here. And I guess with this very first bracket, I can just leave that alone. So that's going to be a cubed, b to the 4, c to the 5, c to the 5. And then I can go backwards here. So that's going to be c to the 6, backwards there, which is b cubed, and a cubed. And now I have 3 to the power of 3. So 3 to the power of 3 is going to be 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So I'll put my 27 right there. And then we're going to multiply this out here. Okay, so my number here is 27, and there's an invisible 1 there. So 27 times 1 is going to be 27. And then a cubed times a to the 3 is going to be a cubed times a to the 3 is 3 plus 3, which is a to the 6. And then b to the 4 and b to the 3 is going to be 4 plus 3, which is b to the 7. And finally, right here, 5 plus 6 is going to be 11, so c to the power 11 there. Okay, so that concludes this homework video guide. This is part 1 of combining exponent laws. Lots of good practice questions to make sure you understand all the exponent rules.